Today, we're going to be taking a closer look at three major elections taking place on November 4th, 2025. These three elections include the New York City mayoral race, the New Jersey governor's race, and the Virginia governor's race. Each one of these contests offers a fascinating glimpse into the political climate heading into the 2026 midterms, and the results will shape how both parties plan their national strategies moving forward. Let's begin in New York City, where the mayoral race has become one of the most closely watched local elections in the country. The Democratic nominee, Zohran Mamdani, has maintained a steady lead in most polls over his main rivals, who include former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who is running as an independent, and Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa. According to a recent Emerson College poll, Mamdani is sitting near 50% support amongst likely voters, compared to roughly 25% for Cuomo and 21% for Sliwa. Earlier surveys by Marist College showed Mamdani with a 16-point lead, but more recent reporting from outlets like the New York Post suggests that Cuomo has begun to close that gap slightly in the final stretch of the campaign. What will truly determine the outcome in New York City is turnout. Mamdani's base of younger and more progressive voters has been highly engaged since the primary, but their participation on Election Day will be crucial. Early voting data suggests that voters have turned out in significant numbers, and historically, early votes in New York tend to favor more progressive candidates. However, if moderate and independent voters rally around Cuomo in the closing days, this race could tighten. For now, Mamdani remains the frontrunner, but his margin depends heavily on who actually shows up to vote on Election Day. Now, moving across the Hudson River to New Jersey, the governor's race between Democrat Mikie Sherrill and Republican Jack Ciattarelli has turned into one of the most competitive contests in the nation. According to a recent Quinnipiac University poll, Sherrill leads 51-43 amongst likely voters. However, another survey from a conservative polling firm shows the race completely tied at 44% each. This divergence highlights how volatile the race has become and how turnout in key suburbs could ultimately decide who wins. Suburban voters in counties like Somerset, Morris, and Bergen are especially influential this year. Both campaigns have poured significant resources into these areas, where concerns about the cost of living, property taxes, and economic stability dominate voter sentiment. While New Jersey typically leans Democratic in most statewide races, Ciattarelli's strong showing in 2021 proved that Republicans can still compete when the electorate is focused on pocketbook issues. If he manages to repeat that performance in the suburbs, this race could be far closer than many expected. Finally, let's turn to Virginia, where the governor's race between Democrat Abigail Spanberger and Republican Winsome Earle-Sears appears to be one of the most stable of the three contests. According to the latest survey from Christopher Newport University, Spanberger leads by roughly 7 points amongst likely voters, while other polls, including those from Emerson and Suffolk University, show her advantage ranging between 8 and 10 points. Analysts from Fox 5 DC have even suggested that this race may already be leaning decisively in Spanberger's favor. Still, as we've learned in past Virginia elections, polls are only part of the story. Spanberger's lead depends heavily on strong support from suburban and exurban voters, particularly in Richmond and North Virginia regions. Earle-Sears, meanwhile, is banking on high rural turnout to close the gap. Early voting data has shown Democratic strength, but if Republicans manage to drive higher same-day turnout, this race could narrow. Down-ballot races for Attorney General and the state legislature could also influence overall turnout, potentially benefiting one side over the other. Taken together, these three elections tell an important story about the current political landscape. New York City remains the most unpredictable, with multiple high-profile candidates splitting the vote and late movement amongst moderates still possible. New Jersey stands as the closest and most competitive race, with both campaigns locked in a true toss-up that will come down to turnout in the suburbs. Virginia appears the most stable, with Spanberger maintaining a consistent lead, though even here, the final margin will depend on turnout patterns and late deciding voters. As we approach Election Day, it's worth remembering that polls are snapshots and not predictions. They show us where things stand at a given moment, but the only poll that truly matters is the one that closes on November 4th. When the results come in, I'll be paying close attention to three things: the early voting numbers, the strength of suburban turnout in New Jersey and Virginia, and whether the opposition vote in New York consolidates around any single candidate. For now, my prediction for these three races are as follows. In New York, I expect Zohran Mamdani to win by over 10 points and take this race by a likely margin. In New Jersey, I expect Democrat Mikie Sherrill to win the governor's race by just over 2 points. And in Virginia, I expect Democrat Abigail Spanberger to win election by just around 10 points. And so those are my final 2025 election predictions. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and write any thoughts you have in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.